On April 1st, 2010, our nation will be counted. Every person, whoever they are, wherever they live. And what we learn will transform what we know about ourselves. The 2010 census, it's a new portrait of America. The 2010 census is an exciting milestone for America. It promises to deliver accurate information about our diverse and growing population. And it's important for the future of every community.
It's imperative that we have reliable data to know how to address the needs of the Hispanic community and to better determine the kinds of program development we may need to help advance the Hispanic community.
Census data will be used to allocate over $300 billion in federal funds every year. Communities use the data to plan for their future, like disaster and emergency services, healthcare services, schools, transportation, libraries, senior centers, and more.
Monies are allotted by the federal government according to the population, according to the numbers, and so it's so important that we get our fair share of the monies for programs coming from the federal government, so everyone needs to be counted.
The 2010 census builds on the success of previous censuses and is the best planned and most well-researched census ever. And innovations, like a new short census form, will help to make it even more successful. The 2010 census, it's easy to complete. Data are always confidential and safeguarded. It's important.
Community-based organizations, schools, every single institution in every community needs to be part of the process to make sure that the constituents that they serve are counted.
Everybody has to come together because this is the fundamental to our democracy. Unless we have a complete census, we won't have full representation and we won't have the information we need to move this country forward.
The 2010 census, it's easy, it's important, it's safe.
like to call this meeting to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Hartstein?
Here.
Trustee Brayman? Here. Trustee Glover? Here. Trustee Berman?
Here.
Trustee Trilling?
Here.
Trustee Stone?
Here.
Trustee Sussman? Here. Quorum established.
Thank you. Move on to minutes. I'd entertain a motion to approve our minutes of our March 8th meeting.
So made.
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Brayman?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
No.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to our warrant. I'd like to call on our village treasurer, Mr. Tenorelli, relating to warrant 1141.
Corporate fund, $557,101.98. Motor fuel tax fund, $2,510. Capital project facilities, $50,547.61. Capital project streets, $18,329.99. A police pension, $30. Fire pension fund, $892. Water fund, $537,321.58. Buffalo Grove Golf Fund, $14,498.38. Arboretum Golf Fund, $8,176.64. Payroll period ending 3/14/10, $1,036,708.72. Total warrant number 1141, $2,226,116.90.
Are there any corrections or any questions relating to the warrant? If not, I entertain a motion to approve warrant 1141.
Made.
Is there a second? Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Brayman?
Aye.
Glover? Aye. Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
Aye.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. Under Village President's Report, I have a few things this evening. First of all, I believe many of you have read in the newspapers or heard on the news that the governor, as part of his budget address, proposed that there be a reduction in the municipal share of our distributive fund. That is the portion by which we derive revenue from the state of Illinois, which has been in place from the inception of the income tax, based upon the fact that it was agreed at the time that that income tax was instituted that municipalities would receive a 1/10 share of the income tax based on a per capita basis. The suggestion by the governor is a suggestion which would have an adverse, very, very adverse effect upon municipalities, not only Buffalo Grove, but upon every single municipality in the state of Illinois. I know that many members of the board have already communicated, as have I, to members of our legislative delegation about our concerns about changing that distributive share, because that's, if it does get changed, we're going to lose significant dollars, and we have to make them up some way, either by reducing services or by increasing the most likely target would be property taxes. So what this proposal is in effect an attempt to deal with the problems of the state on the backs of municipal government. With that in mind, I thought it appropriate that we take an official stand as a community, as many communities are doing around the state on this particular issue. And with that in mind, I would like to introduce the following resolution. Whereas Governor Quinn, as part of his annual state budget address, has called for a plan to cut the percentage of state income tax shared with local government from 10% to 7%. Whereas the local share of the state income tax is remitted monthly through the local government distributive fund. And whereas cities and towns across the entire state continue to experience unprecedented financial hardship as a result of the lengthy and challenging recessionary period. And whereas while the fiscal impact of $300 million estimated to be diverted from local government will only marginally address the state's budget deficit, it will have a significant impact on local government in their delivery of primary public services. Whereas a change in distribution from 10% to 7% is estimated to reduce each and every Illinois municipality's revenue by approximately $23.10 per capita over the next year. Whereas the estimated impact on the Village of Buffalo Grove is equal to $997,800, or 3% of the approved fiscal year 2010 corporate fund budget, a budget developed and approved relying upon the good faith and the integrity of all of its revenue sources and cognizant of the challenging economic climate. And whereas Illinois municipal officials believe that the General Assembly, by taking this action, would be adversely affecting what has been a long-standing, mutually beneficial partnership with Illinois municipalities. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Buffalo Grove, Cook and Lake counties, that number one, the General Assembly is asked to oppose any and all efforts to reduce the local government share of the Illinois income tax to less than the current 10% of net receipts distributed annually through the local government distributive fund. Further, the General Assembly is also asked that the 10% of net receipts formula be retained should there be new revenue collected as a result of any future increase in the Illinois income tax. Section 2, the General Assembly is asked to maintain the integrity of the pledge made to local government at the time the Illinois income tax was authorized in 1969, that the net receipts distributed annually through the local distributive fund would remain intact and at no less than the current percentage level. Section 3, the village clerk is hereby directed to file a certified copy of this resolution with state senators and representatives elected to represent the Village of Buffalo Grove. Village officials and residents are further encouraged to communicate this position of the Village of Buffalo Grove to state elected officials so as to advocate the retention of the current percentage local government share of the Illinois income tax distributed to the local government distributive fund. Lastly, copies of all shall be filed with the Illinois Municipal League and the Northwest Municipal Conference. I would ask for a motion to approve.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Raymond.
Aye.
Glover. Aye. Berman.
Aye.
Trilling.
Aye.
Stone.
Aye.
Sussman. Motion carried.
Thank you very much. I think this is it's a very significant issue, and one I urge our residents to likewise take the time to contact all of our state legislators so that we may not have our budget adversely impacted. I have a couple other things on the agenda this evening. First of all, I have a proclamation relating to Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April, whereas Sexual Awareness Month is intended to draw attention to the fact that sexual violence remains an intolerable violent crime with public health implications for every person in Illinois. And whereas the Village of Buffalo Grove strongly supports the dedicated efforts of the Northwest Center Against Sexual Assault and Rape Crisis Centers throughout the state to encourage every citizen to actively engage in public and private efforts to end sexual violence, including conversations about what sexual violence is, how to prevent it, how to help survivors connect with crucial services, and how every segment of our society can work together to better address sexual violence. Now, therefore, I, Elliot Hartstein, President of the Village of Buffalo Grove, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2010 as Sexual Awareness Month in the Village of Buffalo Grove and urge all citizens to commit to taking action against rape and sexual assault. Proclaim this 22nd day of March 2010. I also have at this time one of our things we always look forward to come Labor Day is Buffalo Grove Days, and we're very, very lucky to have a great committee. And we have a few more additions to that great committee that plans this great festival for us. And it's been recommended that Randy Orloff, Diane Bartlett, and Cody Bartlett be appointed to the Buffalo Grove Committee. And I'd ask for a motion to concur.
So made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much, and I thank Randy and Diane and Cody for their willingness to serve. Another thing I've been asked to bring to everybody's attention is the Google, which we are all aware about from our computers, is planning to build a ultra-high-speed broadband network. And there's opportunities to get support for this type of service in our community, and I'd just like to read this. Google is planning to build and test ultra-high-speed broadband networks in a small number of trial locations across the country. The network would deliver internet speeds more than 100 times faster than what most Americans have access to today, with gigabit per second fiber-to-home connections. Buffalo Grove will be submitting an application to be a trial community as part of this initiative. If approved, this technology would benefit the village, Park District, schools, residents, and businesses. We're seeking residents and businesses to support this village application. Access Google website at www.google.com to submit a letter of support. We urge people to do that in hopes that we can become one of those trial communities. The deadline, however, is coming up very quickly. The deadline to express support is March 26, 2010. We would request that anybody expressing support contact the village manager's office as well for our records. And if you have any questions or for further information, you can go to our village website or you can contact our deputy village manager, Gina Newkirk. We appreciate your support, and we hope with your support and support from businesses throughout the community that we can be one of those trial sites here in Buffalo Grove. The last thing I would like to bring to everybody's attention is we've had some discussions on an ongoing basis from time to time relating to the Land O'Lakes transfer station, and we've had a couple residents in attendance expressing some concerns about potential problems and odors that have been emanating, whether it be from there or from other locations in the area that may or may not be from composting on that particular site. To facilitate cooperation, I did, in fact, last week, after I was advised that the EPA had, in fact, closed out their investigation and did not find any problem with the Land O'Lakes site. They had asked, when I had contacted them previously, that they did not want to entertain any discussions until such time as that had taken place. So with that in mind, after learning that on Tuesday of last week, I immediately got a letter out to them asking them to sit down and explore to facilitate cooperation to eliminate any potential objectionable odors that may emanate from composting. And I told them that I would like to discuss and see if we could reach agreement as to the time frame for any continued composting and other steps that we can agree upon that would eliminate any potential adverse odors. I've emphasized in my letter that I believe that reaching an agreement may be mutually beneficial to avoid future potential complaints and to move forward with marketing, which is most important, the west parcel for commercial development. I'm very, very pleased to report I followed up the next day, and the representatives of Land O'Lakes were very, very pleased to explore the possibility of resolving any concerns or any potential concerns, and they followed up with me today, and we have a meeting scheduled for the week of April 6th with their attorneys and our attorney and representatives of the village to explore what we might be able to do in terms of resolving any potential concerns relating to the Land O'Lakes site. So I wanted to give everybody an update on that, and I'm hopeful that to the extent that there are complaints, that there are any concerns, that we may be able to work out a way to address any of all those concerns by sitting down and amicably trying to work out some solutions with the Land O'Lakes company. And that meeting, I will report back to that meeting after it takes place, let everybody know the results of what those discussions were after that's taken place. At this time, I've asked if there are any reports from trustees. Trustee Stone. Oh, sorry. I'm Trustee Trolling. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tickets are now on sale for the Buffalo Grove Symphonic Band's 9th annual spring concert. The banner, or should I say the poster, looks like this. The performance, Blue on Blue, will feature piano soloist Bill Crowley performing George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. The performance will be held on Saturday, April 24th, starting at 7 p.m. at Stevenson High School. Tickets are on sale at Village Hall for $10 or $12 at the door. Tickets are $8 for students with identification and senior citizens. And I assume you need identification if you're a senior citizen also, unless you have enough gray. And just for those of us who are technologically proficient, a gigabit is actually, 1 gigabit is equal to 1 gigabyte. So during the discussion, I just wanted to clarify that as far as the correct terminology would be gigabyte. I know there's a lot of people who are listening possibly who may care.
I do apologize if I misspoke. I was reading what I thought was in front of me, but I may be technologically deficient, and I appreciate the correction. Thank you very much. But most importantly, having support for that particular test site, I think, would be very beneficial to everybody in the community. However we choose to characterize it, it would be a lot faster. And I think we would all benefit from that, businesses and residents alike. So assuming you'd like to have faster speeds on your computer, whether you be a business or resident, I urge you to lend your support. Trustee Sussman.
I actually thought President Hartstein would mention this. Over the weekend, the Buffalo Grove Park District had a wonderful program, a performance by the Buffalo Grove Singers, and it was held Saturday and Sunday, I believe, to a sold-out audience, and it really was a spectacular event enjoyed by everyone. And President Hartstein is a BG singer.
Thank you. Any further reports from trustees? We have a report from our village clerk, Jan Sarabian.
Maybe the last announcement about the census. Last Monday, I would guess that 99% of us got census forms in the mail. They are as simple as I said they would be. It's 10 questions, takes you 10 minutes to fill it out. Please mail them back. For anybody that needs another census form or did not get a census form, they can be obtained either at the Vernon Township Hall or the Vernon Area Library. And if you have any questions about the census, you can obviously call the Village Hall, but the number for the census is 1-866-872-6868. Please fill those out and mail them back as soon as possible so that you do not have to have a census taker come to your door. Thanks.
Thank you, Jan. And this is that is a really important thing to do, because I think, as we've talked about many times before, we were talking about the distributive fund, and actually one of the factors is our population, which determines how much money we get. So making sure everyone is counted ties in perfectly to that subject which we talked about earlier this evening, because that affects how many dollars are poured into our coffers from the state of Illinois. This time, I'm pleased to call on our Deputy Village Manager, who's sitting in tonight, on behalf of our Village Manager, and I'd like to call on Katie Newkirk for our Village Manager report.
Thank you very much. We just have 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first is the 2010 management milestones. The management milestones are a collection of major projects and initiatives that each of the departments compiled at the last quarter of 2009. These are initiatives that are reviewed on a regular basis, and we'll be presenting them to the board each quarter. If I could highlight just a couple of them and know that all of them are included in the packet, also available on the village's website for public review as well. There are 7 major project areas, and I'm just going to highlight 6 of them briefly. The first is a staff team has been working on a regular basis to update the village's sign code. This is a comprehensive review of the sign code. We are in the process of concluding that staff review, and then we'll be working with representatives from the Plan Commission as well as the ZBA as the next review process. And then eventually this project will come back before the village board for final consideration and approval. As the board is aware, board took action on February 22nd at the board meeting and opted not to proceed with the automated red light enforcement system, which the police department was working on a regular basis. Another project, is significant work has been completed to date on the Phase 1 engineering study along Lake Cook Road. The Cook County Highway Department is in a position at this time to have an informal meeting with the Finance Committee, and that meeting is tentatively scheduled this time for April 12th at Village Hall. After significant study and community input, construction on the village-wide drainage and stormwater management project is underway, and this project is expected to be concluded September 30th. That project is being led by representatives of our Public Works Department. The planned replacement of the village's mobile communications vehicle, MobileCom, will be presented to the village board on April 5th as an authorization to bid. This is a project that Rob Giddens has been working on as our EMA coordinator, taking the lead on. Following the Finance Committee review of last meeting, the final pay and classification program, which includes a revised performance evaluation program, is complete, and this project will be presented to the village board on April 5th. And then finally, all village departments have been asked to take a look at enhanced programs for mentoring younger employees, cross-training opportunities, as well as staff transition. As employees of retirement age are moving on to other chapters. And so all departments are undergoing that. A position that's, of course, very critical is the village manager's succession. Village board at the last meeting approved a contract with Voorhees Associates to undergo an executive recruitment for this position. And this project should be complete within the third quarter of this year. There are many other projects which are listed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay. And then just the second report is the monthly management report for the month of February is located on the village's website. And again, we're happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will move on to an item of special business, and I would like to call to order a public hearing for the special use for retail sales in the industrial district for 1637-39 Barclay, VS Motorsports. Trustee Glover, do you have anything before we turn it over to staff or the petitioner? Thank you.
Thank you very much. If the petitioner could make their way to the podium. Bob File has been actually taking the lead on this project. We have been working with a company called VS Motorsports. They are looking to relocate to Buffalo Grove from an operation in Schaumburg. The primary purpose of this business is building race cars. They're interested in locating in the industrial district, which is a permitted use. They're asking for special use consideration because of a retail sales component. We do have a number of businesses in the industrial district which conduct retail sales at their operation. This is, as you can see in the staff report that Mr. File prepared, it's less than 3% of the total floor area. And if you could just give a quick overview of the business, that would be most appreciated.
It's basically just incidentals. Walk-in business is like 1-2%. Most of our business is generated for online advertisement and stuff like that. So that's about it for the.
If you could first state your name and address, then I'd like to swear you in. Pause.
Chris Von Sydow. Address is 2 Bighorn Court, South Barrington, Illinois, 60010.
And you just raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but truth in connection with your testimony today?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add in terms of share relating to this proposed special use? And basically the special use is simply to allow the retail. Which is probably a pretty good thing when we can generate dollars in the industrial retail sales in our industrial district. Any questions from members of the board? Any questions from members of the public? Any questions or comments from any members of any agencies at this point in time? If there are not, I will adjourn this particular public hearing till we get to the regular portion of the agenda for taking action on this particular item.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time I would like to open up the floor to any questions from the audience on non-agenda items. As in the past, we will entertain discussion or comments relating to agenda items when we get to those particular items on the agenda. So at this time, I would simply ask anyone to come forward who has comments or questions on non-agenda items. Seeing none, we'll move on. The consent agenda is the next item on our agenda. The consent agenda is the portion of our meeting whereby one routine motion, certain items are adopted. Anyone on the board, anyone in the audience, can request that an item be removed from our consent agenda, in which event that item will be considered on the normal course of our business this evening, and anyone has an opportunity to do that. Before we proceed, I'd like to call on our village clerk, Jan Sarabian, to summarize this evening's consent agenda. Jan?
Thank you. First item is Resolution 2010-11, approving an agreement for construction engineering services related to Old Checker Road, Buffalo Grove Road to Checker Drive street improvement. This resolution authorizes the execution of a professional services agreement with bid waiver for the design engineering efforts for the Old Checker Road Local Agency Pavement Preservation Resurfacing Project, or LAPP. Resolution 2010-12, approving intergovernmental agreement for federal participation in the construction of Old Checker Road, Buffalo Grove Road to Checker Drive street improvement. The village has received stimulus funding as part of the Lake County Department of Transportation's local agency pavement preservation program administered by and through the Illinois Department of Transportation. This agreement is necessary in order to participate and access the funds that have been set aside and awarded. Resolution 2010-13, approving the annual revision of the village zoning map. State statute requires the village's official zoning map to be published annually by March 31st. This map includes changes since April 1, 2009. A resolution approving the map is attached for the village board's consideration. And authorization to bid off-site disaster recovery solution. Staff is requesting authorization to bid for an off-site disaster recovery solution. Staff recommends approval of all items on the consent agenda, and that is the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any requests that any items be removed from this evening's consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
So made.
Is there a second? Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Raymond?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
Aye.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. We move now to ordinances and resolutions. I would move first of all to ordinance 2010-20, approving a special use for retail sales in the industrial district for 1637-39 Barclay Boulevard, VS Motorsports, Inc. Trustee Glover.
Make a motion for the approval of ordinance number 2010-20, approving a special use for the retail sales in the industrial district 1637 through 39 Barclay Boulevard for VS Motorsports, Inc.
Thank you. Before we proceed with the motion, we have the public hearing still pending. Is there anyone else who has anything that they would like to add or any questions or comments as part of the public hearing with regard to allowing the retail sales in the industrial district? Seeing none, at this time I close the public hearing and I will entertain discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Raymond?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
Aye.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. We move to item A under old business, which is a motion to reconsider the village president's veto of ordinance 2010-9 and ordinance amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance, Title 17, the municipal code of the village of Buffalo Grove. And at this time, I would call on Trustee Berman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess first, before I introduce the motion, I ask a quick question for the village attorney. Would it be appropriate to handle both items A and B, both motions to reconsider, as one item of business, so that we can combine the discussion from the audience and also from the board, since they're interrelated?
Yeah, that would be fine. There's no bar that you're saying you can't do an omnibus motion on these.
Thank you. Then for purposes of discussion, I would move to reconsider ordinance 2010-9, an ordinance amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance, Title 17 of the municipal code of the village of Buffalo Grove, for purposes of considering override of the village president's veto of that ordinance. And also, I would move to reconsider ordinance 2010-10, the 20th Amendment to the Town Center Plan Unit Development Ordinance, approving an amendment to the Plan Unit Development and approving an amendment to the special use for a family entertainment center in the commercial recreational subdistrict of the B5 Town Center District for purposes of overriding the village president's veto.
Thank you. Just for the sake of clarification, was there a second?
Second.
And that's to both motions?
Yes.
Thank you. Just for clarification with the village attorney, is my understanding that there are two parts to this particular process, just so everybody understands the way this particular concept works. The board first must vote to reconsider. If there is an approval of the motion to reconsider, then there will be a vote, in effect, revoting on considering the particular proposal for those particular ordinances. And in order to approve a motion to reconsider requires simply a majority of a quorum. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. President.
And that means in order to move forward with this particular discussion and, in fact, have a discussion of reconsideration, there needs to be a minimum of 3 votes. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, there's been a motion made and seconded to reconsider, and I would ask if there's any discussion on the motion to reconsider. This is the technical portion. Seeing none, I would ask the clerk call a roll.
Raymond? No. Glover?
Yes.
Berman?
Yes.
Trilling?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Sussman?
The motion is carried. There will now be a reconsideration of the ordinance, and what is the appropriate? There's a need to make another motion at this time with regard to act. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. President. I believe Trustee Berman's probably going to have to make 2 motions, one to do it as an omnibus, or it'd be 1 motion, make it as an omnibus, because you want to do both at the same time, and then it would be a motion to approve, notwithstanding the President's veto.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to approve Village Ordinance Number 2010-9 and Village Ordinance Number 2010-10, notwithstanding the Village President's vetoes of those 2 ordinances.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded. At this time, for the sake of procedure, what I will do with regard to this particular matter, I will first of all entertain discussion from any members of the board that have discussion in this motion, and then if there are any members in the public who would like to share something with the board. We've actually had extensive discussions on this particular issue for many hearings. So I'm not sure how much can be added, but I would, if people do want to speak, you're invited to do so. I would simply ask that at that point we get to that you try and not be repetitive, and if you simply want to say you support something or you oppose something, you can do that without repeating particular points that may have been already made by another speaker. At this time, we'll proceed with the discussion on the motion. And I would ask if there's any discussion from members of the board. Pardon? Okay, at this point, there's none at this point. I would entertain any discussion from any members of the audience who would like to speak on this particular subject. If you would like to speak, please come forward to the microphone. Please state your name, please state your address, and try and give a brief statement of what you would like to share with the board.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Stukel. I live at 2820 Acacia Terrace in Buffalo Grove. Our family has lived in the village for 16 years now, and we have one 17-year-old who is still at home. I've had the opportunity to watch the village board proceedings on the public access channel, and I would request an override of the veto made by the president. The main reason that you've articulated for the override is the health safety, or the veto is the health, safety, and welfare of the community being in jeopardy. I've been a patron and a customer at Escape a number of times, and my 17-year-old frequents the facility for bowling and going with his friends. I know that Mr. Felgeber has approximately a 9-year track record of running a fun facility, a safe facility, and has created a safe environment, I believe, for the kids to spend free time. I understand that out of the 60,000 some odd square feet of the facility, approximately 3,500 feet, about 5%, is asked to be devoted to the dance club. The ordinance that was approved on the February 22nd meeting has many conditions and requirements that would partake to his business. It doesn't give, I believe, due consideration to the 9 years of a successful track record that Bill has had running his operation. Instead of walking away from the concerns of the board, it seems that Bill has done everything that he can do to try to accede to the comments and the concerns of the board. He's invested an enormous amount of time, money, and energy in trying to articulate his position for the board and for the community. I understand he's agreed on the video surveillance that the police department had wanted, which I concur, I think is a good thing. He's agreed to have the Buffalo Grove police officers monitor at the facility, which again I also think is a good thing. Lastly, he's gone, I think, a little bit beyond what a reasonable business expectation would be in leaving this expensive proposition of his on the table, knowing that there's a 6-month die date of the ordinance unless it's formally extended, or else this ordinance is gone. I would respectfully submit an override of the veto and allow Mr. Felgraver the chance, the 6-month chance at least, to run his facility in the same safe and sound manner that he has done so in the past, I believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Margie, and I actually live in Highland Park, Illinois. And I had written a few notes before I came. I am actually just a mom, like many of the other women in here, but I am one of the thousands in all the surrounding communities that has really appreciated Escape, who are all watching their kids very closely and constantly for all the good and evils that teens can get into in our life. This reminds me sort of the Republicans and the Democrats. Everybody's kind of taken a stand, and I hope you guys will listen, because maybe some of us with teenagers and pre-teenagers might be in a different place. And we really appreciate the value of Escape, what it's done. It would be great to have a place that the kids could go to, that I would know where they would come from. They're not going to bring the gangs. There is heroin everywhere. We're all trying to keep our kids away from drugs and bad influences. Heroin is in the boardroom. It's in the bedrooms. It's everywhere. It's not going to fester and grow just because the kids have a place to hang out, a safe place. Many communities have put in preteen spots for these kids to hang out at because they are safe places. And this would be a continuation of this. I also think it'd be a very good thing for your community. I do live in Highland Park. I've actually been a lifelong resident. And Highland Park had the opportunity to buy Northbrook Court many years ago, that piece of land. They declined, and that revenue now is in Northbrook. That makes Northbrook taxes, not only being in Cook County, but so much cheaper than Highland Park. Highland Park is very sorry they don't have that revenue. I actually come to Escape not only to bring my kids, we're actually having my younger son's bar mitzvah there in a few weeks, and my sons have their camp reunions there, so I've had a chance to come many, many times. I think Buffalo Grove is a great community. I think that mall, I've been a retailer my whole life. That mall is empty. You are missing revenue. You were just talking about Governor Quinn and the loss of revenue to all these communities. This is, if you have a place teens are hanging out, stores are going to come, more restaurants are going to come, an ice cream shop's going to come. Many, many things are going to come to help you. So I think that if you have older children, you might not realize you kind of missed that thing. And if you have younger children, you're not just there yet. Everybody who seems to be speaking has teenage kids, so we're in the thick of it right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sari Wise, 2960 Kingston. Actually, I'm not going to repeat what she just said because she really did expand on a lot of what I was going to say. I've been living here for almost 30 years now, and I find myself leaving this village more often than I am actually staying in it. So I'm so happy to hear that somebody from Highland Park is saying that if we have this facility, that they will come here. And I agree with her. Our businesses need it here. We need it. We need our tax revenues. And we all need a place for our kids to hang out other than at City Park in Lincolnshire. I really hope that you are going to consider this instead of just coming in here with closed minds. So please do not veto it. We know Bill Felgraver for years and years. He doesn't want the gangs in there any more than we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, we're here representing Community in Crisis for Haiti. I'm Randy Sobel. Ellen DeLay. Our third partner's home with a sick kid, Julie. But Bill and Escape, I'm going to read what I wrote if that's okay. Bill and Escape supported our benefit concert event to raise funds for Haiti. The event ran very smoothly and there were no surprises. It was safe and it was a lot of fun. The event was on a Saturday night when there were many other events happening at Escape alongside of ours. We had at least 400 people that attended our event, and about 200 of them were high school students, and a lot of them were young families, and there was no trouble to be had. Bill and Escape security team were there, and we did have our own husbands wearing security t-shirts, but it was not necessary. There was nothing that warranted any security. The venue was a perfect fit for the benefit, and we hope to be able to utilize it again in the future. The three of us all support Bill and Escape and feel that they should be able to open this club, especially after you approved it, and he busted himself to get it ready for our event after the approval. We all believe that our kids could use a place to hang out that is safe and local, and hope that you decide to stick with the original vote and overturn the veto. We understand the president's concern that this club will attract guns, gangs, and drugs, and that scares us as well. Sad but true, this stuff is already available if the kids want it in almost any community, including here in Buffalo Grove. The kids who want it will find it no matter where it is. In closing, we hope that you will give Bill and Escape a chance, as we believe he would be the first to close his doors if it became unsafe.
And a separate and a little more personal statement that I'm also going to read. I have a 16-year-old son. Actually, I have a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old son that both attend Stevenson. And while I would love to keep them in a bubble, safe from all the negatives, this is not an option. My 16-year-old has been offered drugs on several occasions while at school, on school grounds, and on the bus. He also attended a traffic safety school and was offered drugs. He chose not to accept. Are these facilities going to be closed as well? Unfortunately, drugs are everywhere. Having a dance club at Escape provides fun for our kids. A dance club would not cause my son or others to use. My son and others know where to get drugs, if they so choose. There is little for them to do in Buffalo Grove, which forces them to spend their money in other municipalities. Escape has brought fun for families and revenue to Buffalo Grove. Bill Feldgraber has met every last demand, which, at least at one point, was enough to earn approval. We implore you to overturn this veto. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Berg. I'm a resident of Buffalo Grove for the last 11 years, and I've been following this debate about the dance club at Escape for the last several months. This is the third time I've been before the board to make to present some of my views and some of my questions. But I think that it probably is a good time to remind everybody what the Board of Trustees originally asked the Chief of Police Belinsky to do. You asked him to come back and say, is a dance club at Escape a good idea? And he did his due diligence, and the police department did their due diligence, and they came back and said no. That a dance club at Escape would bring in increased gang activity, drug activity, criminal damage to property, increased underage drinking, increased number of car accidents around the area of Escape. It would divert the attention of the police on the weekends from other parts of Buffalo Grove in order to focus on a group of young people gathering at Escape. You asked him to do this work, he came back, and then most of you chose to ignore it. So Chief Belinsky went ahead and invited Larry Linderman of Lake County MEGS, Metropolitan Enforcement Agency, the director, the gentleman who probably knows drugs and gangs better than anybody else. And he stood before you, and what did he say? This is a bad idea. He said that drugs and gangs, he said, and then he gave some examples about the club that used to exist in Vernon Hills. Why isn't it there anymore? Because of drugs and gangs. Chief Belinsky, if you read through all the documents that the police department has provided, you'll read that he's been very consistent, the police department's been very consistent about this not being a good idea. Never did he say there might be problems. There's a 20, maybe there'll be a problem, maybe there won't. It says there will be problems. Why? Because he talked to other communities, spoke to other people that have had this experience. Why there's no longer a club in Des Plaines? Same reason, gangs and drugs. And I asked a question 2 meetings ago, or 3 meetings ago it might be, and I said, how many businesses do we have in this community in which we have to do a threat assessment? That in of itself should have been reason enough to just put this to bed a long time ago. But we didn't. So it took a brave and bold action by President Hartstein last meeting to go ahead and say, let's hold on. This is not a good idea. And actually, if I get this correct, he vetoed it based on the special use ordinance. And it says a special use ordinance should not be approved if the potential for harm to the community or its resident exists. The potential. How much more potential do we need than what the police chief and his department says, or what Larry Linderman says? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then President Hartstein pointed out that in the first 9 meetings, we didn't talk about the benefits of this club. We talked about how to minimize the dangers of this club. That's what everybody's been talking about. How many police should we have? What should the security cameras be like? 9 meetings of that. And actually, when you talked about the benefits are brought up early on. Having a place for the kids to come together. I think that's great to have a place for young people. But the problem is not the young people of Buffalo Grove. It's the young people, the 80% that come to these clubs from Chicago or other places that don't have a vested interest in our community. And their parents don't have a vested interest. If we could get these parents to chaperone all these dance parties, we'd be great. This dance club would be phenomenal. But I have a feeling on Friday and Saturday night, the kids go off to the dance club and the parents go somewhere else. We talked about the benefits, about kids coming together. But the police said gangs and drugs. I asked a question of Village Manager Brim. I said, has there ever done a revenue assessment done on this? And the answer was no. So we know it's not about revenue. And then President Hartstein, at the meeting in which Mr. Linderman spoke, asked the owners of Escape whether or not he would consider keeping the club just for the young people of our community and the surrounding areas. And the answer was no. There wasn't enough money in it. You need the people from outside the community in order to make this work. So that leads us to where we are tonight. And I guess it's frustrating to be here thinking that we're considering safety and security of our residents, and you're willing to throw that out the door. And I think it's really important to make sure that I commend the trustees that have really stuck by this. Trustee Brayman and Trustee Sussman, you've gone ahead and been consistent in your views in saying that this is not a good use. This shouldn't be approved. There's a potential for harm to our residents. On the flip side, Trustees Trilling and Berman have consistently said this is great for Escape. It is great for Escape. But I just question why you feel that we hire a professional police department. We have professional law enforcement. You asked them to do their work, they did their work, and then something in your resume says that you should supplant their recommendation with your own. That the resident safety, the safety of the community, the safety of my family and these people in this room and our residents of our community comes second to the success of a local business. Get it, please understand, I like Escape. I bowl there, I enjoy it, the food is good, I like Escape. This dance club is a terrible idea because it jeopardizes the safety and security of our residents. Finally, Trustee Stone, you had something gnawing at you a few meetings ago, saying that something just didn't feel right. And as a parent, I really hope that you'll think about what your vote means. And Trustee Glover, with a 16-year history on the board, I certainly hope that that you will maintain this veto as well, and that we can continue the legacy that has been developed of a wonderful community in which we go ahead and say, hey, we want to help our businesses grow, but we're not going to sacrifice our community for gangs and drugs. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Matt Burdine. I've been a resident of Buffalo Grove for about 30 years. Mrs. Sussman was my science teacher, and I went to high school with Mr. Hartman's son. And I've been in business here personally for about 15 years, and my parents for about 30. While it definitely, I believe, is the responsibility of the board to keep the community safe, it's also the responsibility of the board to make sure that businesses thrive. And if we're not allowed to have our businesses grow, it's very hard for us to continue our success. While Mr. Feldgarber has been for 9 years at Escape and he's had a very responsible track record, there is nobody in this room with more to lose financially or liability-wise than Mr. Feldgarber. So for him to put his neck on the line for something like this, he must feel that it's successful and he must feel that he could keep it safe. I think too, it's the responsibility of the parents to keep their children safe and not the board. If you're upset that you think there's going to be issues or problems there, don't go. You know, people have control over their underage children who are going to be at this Escape club. So I really hope the board reconsiders, and it's a very temporary measure, it sounds like. In 6 months, it's dead anyways. If there's a problem with it, it could be canceled relatively easily. Why not give them the chance? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Rick Joseph, 2491 Overview Drive. I've been a resident of Buffalo Grove for a better part of 20 years. And I'm going to keep this brief. I know you guys have heard so much. You've probably heard everything. I remember when Escape first opened and everybody had the same concerns about the drugs, the people coming from the different communities. You know, how is this going to affect our neighborhood? Well, as you can see, it's been nothing but a positive experience for everybody that's involved. I know my kids enjoy it, my family, my friends. You know, you can't say enough about the place. You know, for everything, you know, the village of Buffalo Grove, except for Escape, and maybe for some part, the Buffalo Grove theaters, there's really been nothing for our kids to do here in this village. We have more and more kids, our population has exploded, and we've really done nothing for them. I think, you know, adding the dance club, it's going to be a great opportunity for kids to meet other kids from different areas. It's going to be a great opportunity for our kids to do something safe on the weekends. And the last thing I want to say is, for everything that Escape has done for our community, I think it's about time that our community does something for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is David Loeb, 2941 Acacia Terrace. I've lived in the village for 30 years with my wife. I've always been in the school district here for 32 years, teaching probably some of these kids, and I know some of your kids. I've known Bill for a long time. I remember when this center was struggling. I remember he came along and put his money where his mouth was, opened up Escape. There's been good times there, there's been bad times there. I think that the village beat this thing to a pulp, discussed it, and approved it. And I think that Bill went and was willing to risk his money and put his money where his mouth was. And you're going to give him a 6-month time period. And now to yank the rug out from under him, I think is unconscionable. I think that you gave him the right to go ahead. I know that he spent money for the Haitian function. And now for you guys to say that, you know, the village president vetoes it and you're going to think about it, I just think it's unconscionable. If every time that somebody wanted to come into a municipality, and I deal with a lot of different municipalities because I'm in development, every time there's a little change, you have to sit there and fight to the death, which sometimes you do, and you're willing to risk your money. You know, you want to give them the chance, and I think that you should give them the chance, and I think that the veto should be overturned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Norman from 20584 North Horatio. Just a couple quick comments. I fully support Bill's notion of this endeavor, surely based on wanting to grow the business, expand what he wants to do there at the store. I'm a frequenter of the facility for my daughter. She's in leagues. I'm in leagues myself. I look forward to going there. As a family, there's very little to do fun-wise in the community. And I think a lot of the browbeaters, no pun intended to anyone that votes against this, but it's very easy to poke fun at what someone's trying to do to grow their business, and it's very easy to just say no. And oftentimes in our lives we're forced against a decision to decide whether we wanted to play to win or play not to lose. And I think it's very easy to play not to lose in fear of protecting the nest, so to speak, as opposed to letting someone grow their business. Give it 6 months. What harm could there be? I really don't see a lot of, the gangs and drugs is a big a big shield that people hide behind sometimes in fear of people ransacking the community. But I see the local establishment as a much more upscale community as a whole, which is why I chose to move my family here and choose to go through the school district here, because it's a phenomenal community. But just to, make a blanket statement that people are just going to come out of the woodwork up into this community is a little unreasonable, I believe, because I'm sure he'll have an apt cover charge to get in. I'm sure the drinks won't be $1 a piece, and I'm certain as Bill runs his business, I've been carded bowling a couple, 3 times the same day, knowing that I'm in that place numerous times a week. So they follow protocol, and I can't see fake IDs or any of that type of thing getting just shuffled under the carpet there. It's a very high-level organization. I'm a businessman myself, and I understand how easy it is to make shortcuts, and I just don't see this type of business happening at Escape. And given the chance, I'm sure they'll do very well there. I'm sure the kids in the community will work there, and I'm sure if there's any adjustments needing to be made over time, you can certainly make those adjustments. If they try the teen nights and it doesn't work out, maybe it's 21 only at that point. I mean, I'm sure he's a very reasonable man, and if there's adjustments that need to be made throughout, I'm sure he'll be quick to make those. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to briefly respond, since this relates to overturning a veto, which I made, and I'll open it up to the board to decide what they choose to do. I don't have any prepared remarks. I read my veto with great detail at the last meeting. I just would like to emphasize, one of the comments was, it's easy to say no. Well, I can tell you it was very difficult for me to say no, only because of the fact that I do have a highest regard for Mr. Feldgruber and Escape. I think he's an asset to our community. I think that Escape is a fine institution, and I think it's a real asset to the village of Buffalo Grove, and I have nothing but praise for that as an institution. However, when I made my decision, I did it based upon the evidence. Based upon the evidence that was presented to us. We have an obligation under our ordinances, and I'm elected to, one of my responsibilities is to basically uphold those ordinances as best I can based upon my review of those ordinances. And in this particular situation, one of the standards which we must, in fact, adhere to is making sure that before we provide and approve a special use, that it is not going to be an endangerment to our public health and safety. In this particular situation, I'm not going to belabor it and go through the specifics. I did that in my veto message, which I read last time. But the bottom line is every single bit of evidence which was presented to this board based upon experience from other communities who've experienced similar clubs, the testimony from our police department, the testimony from Mr. Linderman from MEG, who is quite experienced in this particular area. All of the evidence pointed to a potential problem. Each and every one of examples of documentation which was presented to us prevented nothing but the potential problem of attracting. We know, and I agree with what everybody said in terms of the concept of we have drugs in our community, we possibly have even gangs that may come into our community from time to time, or may even be in some of our schools. But the fact of the matter is the testimony which convinced me that this was something that we should not do was because I'm not concerned about our kids. Yes, we know the parents have a responsibility to control their own kids, and I have confidence in the parents of Buffalo Grove. But this wasn't talking about our kids. This was talking about all of the evidence pointed to who is going to be brought in. And I believe Mr. Linderman's, the best term that he used to get his point across, this will become a magnet for bringing in people from outside the community who are going to try and take advantage of our kids. Now, the original concept, I certainly, I think was great to have an idea of having something for our kids. But unfortunately, as I listened to the testimony and I heard the evidence, it was clear that this wasn't going to be something for our kids alone, and obviously it wasn't going to be restricted to our kids alone. Actually, the ordinance in Vernon Hills, when they passed it, they actually restricted it to kids from certain area high schools adjacent to Vernon Hills. our particular proposal is not restricted. It's open to the world. It's open to anyone who wants to come. And yes, I applaud Mr. Feldgreber for working with the board to try and minimize, to try and mitigate the potential problems, but the problems are still there. And based upon all of the evidence, I felt compelled to veto the ordinance because I felt the evidence was clear and there was no evidence in opposition that this would be a potential problem, and it was for that reason that I vetoed it. It wasn't because I don't have the highest regard for Mr. Feldgreber. It wasn't because I don't know that we don't already have problems with our kids here in Buffalo Grove from time to time. The fact of the matter is, it was who was going to be brought in from outside who might have an adverse effect on our community based upon all of the examples, all of the police chiefs that were contacted by our police department. They did their due diligence, they reported back to us, and it was for that reason that I vetoed this particular ordinance. And I obviously respect whatever decision the board makes this evening. I will fully support and obviously work with the business and the entire board to implement whatever decision is made this evening. But I just wanted to emphasize that I made it based upon the facts, based upon the evidence which was presented before us. At this time, I open up any further discussion from any trustees. Trustee Berman.
Thank you, Mr. President. No doubt, this is a matter in which reasonable people can disagree, both as to substance and degree. This is the first time that you have exercised veto in the nearly 12 years that you've served as our village president, and I think that we all need to take a moment to reflect on the seriousness of the matter in which you chose to do that. And I respect your opinion. I respect the fact that you view the evidence in a certain way. That said, I don't believe anybody up here is ignoring either your statement last meeting or the testimony of the police chief. In fact, the special use ordinance that was adopted by the board includes some of the most abundant and onerous restrictions, conditions, and punitive measures of any ordinance that I've ever seen or contemplated, and certainly beyond anything that we've ever adopted, specifically intended to address in a constructive and meaningful way the concerns that have been raised both by the staff and by members of the public. It would be ill-advised to believe that any decision up here was made in disregard, but in fact, the ordinance reflects the high regard that this board had for the evidence that was presented to us, both by the petitioner and by the staff. And I think the ordinance as adopted is a strong one. It will address in a constructive way anything that comes to pass, and if, in fact, the fears that have been expressed do arise, the club will quickly disappear. It's just that simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Stone.
I echo everything Trustee Berman just said. We have given this great contemplation, and just to address a couple of the issues, and I think my perspective is somewhat unique in that everyone in the community at this point knows that I have a focus in my life trying to do what I can to stop the narcotics that we all know are here. And Larry Lindenman, just for those who have spoken to Larry Lindenman's words, and I've spoken to Larry Lindenman in depth for a long time now, and he made it very clear, and it was a very credible statement because he didn't just get up and say that this dance club is going to cause drugs. He was clear to say there are drugs, not only in our community, but in Highland Park, in Deerfield, in Naperville, in every suburb throughout our country. They are here. So this is not going to cause our community and our children to do drugs. And to one of the moms that made that point that it really is what the kid is going to do in their life, and it's just the decisions that they make. Now, I respect and I hold important that we do our best to try to protect our community as best as we can while still maintaining, activity and normal functions in society, such as dance. I mean, if we've gotten to a point that having a dance club is considered dangerous, my feeling is that we have to responsibly do what we can as adults to protect our community so our kids can have dancing like we all had. This shouldn't be a world in which dance is no longer safe. And this is why we've asked for what Chief Belinsky wanted is protection, which was the uniformed officers from Buffalo Grove. Larry Lindemann was clear when he said private security he did not feel could do what Buffalo Grove officers could do. And as a board, we accepted that, and that was that gnawing feeling that the citizen just mentioned. That's when I believe that we have to have the uniformed officers there. And therefore, with that kind of protection that Bill Feldgraber was willing to go that distance and the expense to protect our community so that our kids can have dance and send the message to the drug dealers, if you come around here, you're going to get busted. And that is what will happen. With our police force, just like they are with alcohol, Buffalo Grove is well known for stopping drunk driving throughout the state, probably throughout the country. It's my deep belief that we will also be known as the community that will put the walls up to the drug dealing and will not allow it and will arrest people if they try to break through that wall. So I just want to say that no one knows really in the community, I shouldn't say no one, there's other people that share the sad history that I have in my family regarding my sister. Heroin is very real and it happens to anybody. But it's also the choice of the person. And sadly, in a circumstance that should have never happened, it happened. So it's really the person's decision in life. And what we can do with our kids is provide, I think, normal activities and with the right protection, which we are. And I do believe that in that situation that we can afford them the same activities that we grew up. A couple other points I want to make. So it's important that the community understand that, I'm sure I speak for the rest of the board on this, I would think, everything Chief Belinsky says, I do take in very seriously. I have great regard for his opinion, his studies. But we can't, if we were a board that just deferred to his decision on everything, well, then we wouldn't really need a board. So the point is that when I weigh in when Chief Belinsky would have preferred, when he said his first choice is not to have, but then he said, but if we do have, he would have the uniformed officers. I just want to remind everyone that just a couple weeks ago, and it was with due diligence, Chief Belinsky felt that we should have red light cameras for the safety of the people. But as a board, we unanimously voted against it. That's not to say that we don't respect him, but it's just to say that we have to make decisions weighing in the factors that he gives us and the factors that our experience in life tell us. And that's what government is. It's weighing everything in. So it's not with disregard to Chief Belinsky. It's that I have great faith in him and the police department of what they can do. I've seen what they do with alcohol, and I have no question that when people see Buffalo Grove officers out front of Escape, if they're trying to come in with drugs, they're out of their mind. The last point I'd like to make, and I'll be finished, excuse me. Well, I think that's really what I'd like to say. Bottom line is that I think that we did debate this at length, and Bill Feldgraber agreed to everything. If anything fails, if we anticipated wrong on any of this, we have the ability to say it has to stop. And I think he would be the first one to say it because it would tarnish his reputation. I think he deserves the chance. I think if we can't have dance at this point in our world, that's really sad. So with the right protection, I would say, let's hope that we can show the world that dance is still a good thing.
Thank you. Trustee Sussman.
My opinion has not changed, and I won't repeat what I've said at each meeting, but I would like to mention just a few things this evening. First of all, I'm not poking fun at Bill Feldgraber, as it has been said. I respect you, Bill. In an email I sent to your brother, I told him I respect you as a businessman. I give you so much credit for everything you've achieved in your life and in Buffalo Grove at the same time. My family goes in bowling there. When my relatives come in from out of town, we take them bowling there. We spend time there. We know what kind of a wonderful place it is. But when I think about what you're trying to do, I just cannot agree with it. And some of the comments people have made for the relief fund party for Haiti, there were many parents there. You did not have young children there, young adults there. You had families, you had parents there. So I cannot compare that to a situation where there's just a dance club situation. I am concerned about, I do think it would be popular. I do think there will be cars and traffic. I think police people who are not supposed to be there will have to be there to take care of all of the traffic and the noise. There are people who live there. There are homes and condos and things surrounding it. I don't think it's fair to those people. I know we want to have a place for young people in Buffalo Grove. But I was on Facebook, and I was on your page on Facebook. And first of all, I was very disappointed in the pictures that were on Facebook, because I remember one evening when a resident had told us to go to a certain website, and we did, and I wasn't happy with the pictures, and I specifically said, Bill, I'm not even worried about that, because I know you would never do that. And yet there were pictures on Facebook that I was not happy with. I do not consider myself a prude, but I was not happy with those pictures. A lot of the comments, there were over 1,100 people at that time on that page, and a lot of them were not from Buffalo Grove. So if people think we're doing this for the children, for the young adults in Buffalo Grove, that's not true. And I've said it before, this is a business venture, this is a business adventure, it's to make money, and you're a businessman, I'm a businesswoman. I don't blame you in the least for trying to make money. These are very hard times. For those of you who are in business, you know how hard it is. So I don't fault you with that. But nonetheless, people will be coming in from all over. And the only other comment, when it comes to drugs, and Trustee Stone, you say it's the choice of the person. You know what, we're talking about young adults, and I don't think sometimes they, with their wonderful upbringing, with everything that parents do to raise them properly, I don't always think they will make the proper decision. If it is available, I don't always think they will make I would like to think they do, but I don't always think they will. And Bill, if this is passed, I will support you 100%. You will have my support in every way. I will even go to a grand opening if I'm invited. So I wish you luck. If it's voted on, I do wish you luck on it.
Thank you. Trustee Bryman.
Thank you. It's really difficult for me to speak now, and I'm sure some of my board members are probably happy about that. But I did take the opportunity to write some notes down and ask the village president to read them on my behalf. Thank you.
Sure. These are the words of Trustee Bryman. And it would be much sexier had he read them tonight in that particular voice. And it'll probably have more impact, but I will read them nonetheless. As a result of my laryngitis, I've asked the village president to read this statement regarding the proposed veto override. As I believe I have made it clear over the past numerous months, I have opposed this proposal primarily based upon my experience in the recommendation of the police department and the Metropolitan Enforcement Group. My position has not changed. Actually, as we sit here tonight, I remain stronger in my conviction that this is not the type of use that will benefit our community. It was suggested by Bill Felgreber that the project, originally called The Arena, was geared toward our youth as a place to go and hang out in a safe environment. However, since our last meeting, I have seen that their marketing suggests otherwise. They have now named the facility the Glow Nightclub, which I understand, according to the police department, has some reference to drugs. Additionally, their ads focus their marketing not to our children, but to a much different crowd. It is clear to me that this will not be marketed to our young people or benefit our children. I would like to address the balance of my comments to Trustee Glover and Trustee Stone. At this point, I believe that Trustees Berman and Trilling are lost causes, at least to this issue. Deanne has made it clear early on in the discussions that she would support the recommendation of the Chief of Police. We need to be clear, or at least he needs to be clear. The police department does not support this use, period. Chief Belinsky has stated time and again that he is against the proposal. However, in the event the board decides to approve, regardless, he would recommend at least 2 uniformed BG officers on site. This is not to be considered as approval, only a way to reduce the impact to the community. Therefore, I ask that you consider the department's position when voting on the override. As to Trustee Stone, much of the same applies to you. You have indicated your support and respect for the department and Meg. Accordingly, if you agree with their position, then I would suggest that you vote to sustain the veto. Additionally, I have heard you state over and over that your most important concern is the safety of our citizens. Also, you have pronounced your concern about drugs in our community. In fact, you based your election campaign on that issue. You fought for a stop sign on Bernard when the police department and other experts told you that there was no safety concern and the sign would not solve the perceived problem. You were against the OTB in part because you feared it would bring outside dangerous influences to the village, even though the police department suggested otherwise. You were concerned about what you perceived to be dangerous odors at Land O'Lakes, even though the county, state, and federal government all say it's safe. You went on television and said that prior to the election, you brought the drug problem to the village board and we did nothing, even though I, for one, don't recall you ever doing so. Now, we are in a position to do something. The police department and Meg have warned of the increased gang, drug, and weapon problems that most likely will occur as a result of this use. They have stated this as a result of their research from conversations with other departments where similar uses were located. Their opinion is based upon solid evidence. If you are truly concerned about the health and safety of our community, if you are truly concerned about the explosion of drugs in our village, then your vote tonight should be simple. You must vote to sustain the veto. All the evidence points toward the fact that this use is not in the best interest of the community and may be harmful to the health, safety, and welfare of the village. What I am surprised about is you are not leading the opposition to the proposal. If you're looking for this board to take a stand against drugs, this is where it starts. If you want me or anyone else to take you seriously in your opposition to drugs and your concern for the safety of the community, then your decision is an easy one. Vote against the override and support the veto. I now call the question.
Freeman?
Okay, well, I was reading his statement. In the interest of,
Okay.
there's a call for the question. Is there a second? Is there a requirement for a second to call the question?
Yes, there is.
Yes, okay. There's a motion, and there's no.
It's a voice vote, non-discussed voice vote.
On the calling the question.
Call the question, and then if that passes,
Then we vote.
Then you vote on the actual underlying subject.
Okay. At this time, there's been a motion to call the question in a second. I would ask all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? The question shall be called. The question shall be called. We just voted the procedure. Doesn't make any difference. We follow parliamentary procedure.
Freeman?
Make sure, can we reiterate the motion?
It would-
It's okay, I'm okay.
I mean, I'm following proper procedure.
Under parliamentary procedure, if the question is called and approved by the members of the board, that ends debate. That then calls the question for the underlying ordinance in this matter. Therefore, because the question was called and approved with no nay votes, now there is no more discussion, and now the vote shall take place.
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Point of order, Mr. President, can we have a clarification on what the vote is? A yes vote means readoption of the two ordinances, and a no vote means not to adopt the ordinances. Is that correct?
That's correct. A yes vote would in fact be an adoption of the ordinances. A no vote would be to not adopt the ordinance.
In effect, sustaining the veto.
In effect, sustain the veto. That's exactly correct, Mr. President.
Glover?
Yes.
Berman?
Yes.
Trilling?
Yes.
Stone?
Yes.
Sussman? No. 4-2. 4 yes,
This-
2 no, I'm sorry.
And the motion was a consolidated motion with regard to both, with both, that is correct.
Correct.
The veto has been overridden. I would only like to say, as I stated a few moments ago, I fully support whatever decision that this board makes as a board, and I will certainly do my utmost to lend support to Escape in this particular endeavor. I too, if invited, would be happy to be at the grand opening. But the other point is that I'm only hopeful that the evidence we heard is wrong, and I will be thrilled. I will be thrilled to have that evidence which was presented to us proven wrong, and that you succeed without any problems whatsoever. So I wish you well. Thank you. Trustee Trolling.
Mr. President, I promise not to say I told you so if you promise not to say it also.
He abstains.
We're moving on. At this time, we move on to an item of new business, which is a award of a contract for the 2010 village-wide contractual street maintenance additional work. Trustee Brayman.
I'll defer to Trustee Glover.
Since Trustee Brayman can't talk very well tonight, I'll make a motion to award the contract for the 2010 village-wide contractual street maintenance additional work in an amount not to exceed $70,000 per the memo before us tonight, dated March 22nd.
Second.
Discussion on the motion.
Can we get staff report?
Absolutely. The 2010 village-wide contractual street program was approved by the village board on May 4th. What staff is recommending, this project is being led by Dick Kinkler, is to add the area which is identified in the map in your packet to that program. So that's an amount not to exceed $70,000. This project includes curb to gutter, base course, restoration, resurfacing, construction, and engineering.
Any further questions? Any further discussion on the motion? If not, will the clerk please call a roll?
Raymond?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
Aye.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. This time, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act and collective bargain pursuant to Section 2C2 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act.
So made.
Second.
Will the clerk please call a roll?
Raymond?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
Aye.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.